gotta get it on mindset.
For one final time, we welcome you to RaceSpotTV and Monday night coverage of the iRacing IndyCar Open Series. 11 races are done, one still to go. Adam Blocker has one hand on the championship trophy and is looking for a championship coronation here in the Pocono Mountains. It's been a tremendous season so far, and we have no doubt as we head to the legacy version of the Pocono Speedway here on the iRacing service, we're in for one final roller coaster to close things out. Welcome back, and for one final time, my name is Arjuna Kankipati, joined as always by my Powerslide Motorsports teammate Andrew Kinsella. And Andrew, it's been a fantastic season, not just because we've gotten to see our teammates win all but one race this season, but because we've seen some of the closest, the best, the most exhilarating racing this series has ever seen.
Yeah, absolutely no bias in this commentary booth whatsoever. It hasn't just been the Powerslide drivers, it's been everyone in this field has just put on some incredible races this season, and I can't wait to see what the Tricky Triangle brings. I think it's fitting that we are ending the season this year, Arjuna, at the only oval that is not a true oval but a triangle. So this track always produces some fantastic racing. It's so wide, there's so many different ways to get through these corners. There will be slide jobs galore. I think that this is going to be some incredible racing once more to finish off this season.
As quickly run you down the championship standings, Adam Blocker, as mentioned, one hand on the championship trophy. Remember, it's a 12-week season, but only the best 8 scores across of those 12 weeks will count towards the championship. Blocker almost 200 points clear. Alexander Van der Sat and Robert Milechka make it a Powerslide 1, 2, and 3, but it's been the charge of Will Lyon that has been the one to watch. He sits in 4th, but as he scored 8 points in these championship standings, watch out for Hugo Olsen, the Swede, who joins us once more here on a Monday night, late evening for the young Hugo Olsen as he tries to make it a Powerslide 1 through 4. The likes of Rashad Craig, Andrew Marquez have been impressive as well. David Porcelli and Adam Crane join us as well for what is going to be a fun race. And you talked about this track, the Tricky Triangle. It's a long one, 2.5 miles. It's a triangle, only 3 turns, but they're all very different. They all have their own challenges, and therefore building a setup for this track, Andrew, is oh so difficult.
Yeah, and of course each corner is modeled after a separate real-world corner. Turn 1, of course, the old Trenton Motor Speedway. Turn 2, the famous Indianapolis 90-degree left-hand corner. And then turn 3 is modeled after Milwaukee. Very, very flat. And it's so difficult, as you say, to get the setup right here, because each corner has very different characteristics and very different needs. So everything is going to be a compromise. It's going to be interesting to see which team gets it right here today.
And from your perspective, Andrew, what's the difference from, as a setup builder, between the old Pocono that we're racing on this time versus the new Pocono?
Yeah, so the old Pocono is just a little bit bumpier. It feels a little bit narrower just because there's a little bit more grass on the insides. Turn 1 especially was reconfigured just a little bit and during the repave, so that's probably the one that's the most different between the repaved version and this old version that we're on today. But the bumps, especially Arjuna, that's what will really make difficulties for these drivers and setup builders here today, because the car does get thrown around quite a bit more on this old surface.
So qualifying has come to a close for one final time this season. Let's go trackside here at the Tricky Triangle. Let's take a look at the starting grid for round 12 in the iRacing IndyCar Open Championship. And it's Team Talent's Joshua Chin that puts it on pole position with a 41.589. The last time we broadcasted here at Pocono in this championship, it was Jason Brophy for Team Talent that put it into victory lane. Alexander Van der Sant rounds out the front row with Hugo Olsen and Robert Malechka for Powerside Motorsports sharing row 2. Adam Blocker and Adam Crane, who have had their physical interactions so far this season. 5th and 6th positions. Can they get through the start of this race without more drama? Laura Gerhardt and Will Lyons 7th and 8th, while rounding out the top 10, Andrew Marquez and John Silva, Trace Shadid and Robin Glennox just outside on row number 6. Aaron McQuarrie and Tim Williams 13th and 14th positions, while Rashad Craig looks to try and build on the impressive championship he's had so far back in 15th in the 15 machine. Brian Spots on his outside on row number 8. Mark Murphy and Jason Wallet, 17th and 18th position. Big old field that we've got here today. Final 2 cars setting qualifying lap times. David Porcelli and Zach Spreitzer. Alexis Newsom, Christian Macarelli, and Gil Ribeiro. No time laid down for them, but there is going to be plenty of opportunities for drivers to work their way up through the field. We've got 85 laps on the board here, Andrew. Got at least 1 pit stops, but cautions will always mix things up.
Cautions will mix things up, but the thing that I really want to highlight about Pocono that's very different from pretty much every track other than Indy in terms of strategy is this is one of the few ovals on the surface where you can actually complete a pit stop without losing a lap here. So you're going to see a bit of a different strategy game for most of these drivers here, because one thing that we talk about more on the road courses with strategy than the ovals is that these drivers might just find some advantage pitting a little bit early and then hoping that a caution comes out and having that danger zone open up that you so often see on road courses but so rarely see on ovals. So that is definitely something that I'm going to be keeping an eye on today, Arjuna.
And of course, it's been a couple of years since Pocono last hosted IndyCars. The last 2 times that we've come here, big crashes. There are rumors, though, that Pocono might have a date upcoming, and we want more ovals on the calendar. That's the reality in the NTT IndyCar series, Andrew. We want more ovals, and a recent poll of the fan base, they said they want Pocono to return as well.
Yeah, we saw that big survey that IndyCar did with motorsports.com, and it really showed that there is a huge appetite for oval track IndyCar racing, both in North America and around the world. And Pocono really is a great facility for IndyCar. Yes, there have been some big incidents there, but I always recall that during the heyday of IndyCar, danger is always just a part of the game, and we've sort of gotten away from that, but Pocono is almost a little bit of a throwback for me, and having that danger element, while it's not necessarily the best, at the same time, it does add just that little bit more excitement, and I do hope that it does come back one of these days and one of these years soon.
Well, you don't have to pay for any damaged race cars that we may see here today. 85 laps, one final showdown here in the Pocono Mountains. What does this tricky triangle have in store for us? Fielding control of Joshua Chin, power slide stacked up behind him. We're racing for the final time this season as Chin leads the field to the green flag. It's a great jump from him. Here comes the run from Adam Crane to make it almost 4 abreast into that heavily banked turn number 1 where you can fan out 3 abreast. They'll single file themselves out at the front of the field. Hugo Olsen with a nice little jump. The two Adams really starting to battle once more.
Yeah, really nice start from Josh Chin there. He got a great jump on Alexander Van de Sande, who maybe was a little bit sleeping here on the start. One of the things about the start zone here is it's very, very quick and very, very short. So oftentimes the leader goes very quickly, and I think Van de Sande maybe just wasn't quite expecting Josh to go that quickly, and he's found himself mired in a little bit of a battle between his teammates. But the power slide driver that really benefited from that was Hugo Olsen, now in second place.
Already an 0.8 of a second advantage across the line they come for the very first time. Look at the field, still stretched out, using that draft to keep as one big pack. Only 6 seconds currently separate the entirety of the 23-car field as Malechka and Van de Sande duke it out with one another. 2 new recruits to Powerslide Motorsports who will be competing in the Lionheart IndyCar Series, which gets underway this Wednesday. Van de Sande will be on the inside of the tunnel turn, and that's what you can do. Blocker uses that momentum. It's only 8 degrees of banking, but gets the pass done, and Van de Sande starting to slide backwards.
Yeah, power move from Adam Blocker there. What he did there, Arjuna, is he used the draft. Alexander Van de Sande, when he got side by side with Robert Malechka, he didn't have a draft on the inside there, so it's such a long back straightaway here that Adam Blocker was able to use that draft to really get some good speed going into the corner, and then he used the outside lane to really sling it around the outside. But we've got battling all over this field right now. We're looking back at 15th between Rashad Craig and David Porcelli, but it's been battling back and forth between a number of different drivers. Alexis Newsom is another driver who appears to be on the move as well.
No qualifying time from that number 9 car. Newsom's already up 4 positions as she works her way towards a top 15. And like Andrew mentioned at the top, all 4 corners here modeled after, all 4 corners, excuse me, what turn 4, as it says on the outside of turn number 3. All 3 corners modeled after various real-world tracks. And when it comes to in-car tools, Andrew, we talked about the compromise on setup. How aggressively are you dialing in your front and rear ARBs, the weight jacker, as you work your way around the speedway?
Yeah, I think that a lot of these drivers, particularly at the front, will be all over the tools throughout this race. There will even be some drivers and teams who will have setups that will require different tool settings in turns 1 and 3. You can, generally speaking, get away with basically leaving turn 2 the same as you have turn 1, but by the time you get down into turn 3, oftentimes I find that you need completely different settings to really maximize that corner as well. So definitely those who can master their tools are really going to find better fortune here today, I think.
Still looking back in the pack because it has split up at the front of your field, but if we look forward once more, John Silva, Laura Gerhard on the exit of turn number 1. Gerhard's going to drop down behind the number 12 machine. 9/10 up the road to Will Lyon, who's then 1.5 seconds further back from Adam Crane in front of him. How important is clean air going to be here? Because what we're seeing is you look at the entirety of the top 8, they're almost split now by half a second, if the only exception to that is the 2 cars that we're looking at right now.
So basically what you're going to find here, I think, is that clean air is important if you're the leader. But if you're back in this pack, you're going to want to find clean air through the corners, but really use the draft to get back towards the car in front of you on the straight line. Simply because with some of the compromised lines that you're going to have to run to find that clean air, you're going to find yourself losing a fair bit of time through the corners, depending on whether you're running the inside, the outside, whether you get some aero wash. So using that draft to your advantage and not letting the car in front of you get too far ahead of you is going to be very, very important for all these drivers.
And like we were saying, there is so much action up and down through the field. You're looking top and bottom at the battle for 8th, and then the battle for 15th is just behind Gerhard and Marquez now. Robin Glennox almost runs himself into the wall coming out of turn number 3. To the inside pokes Andrew Marquez, the New York native, who really impressed on the short tracks when we went racing at the Richmond Raceway, put it on pole, controlled the race until a caution let Adam Blocker cycle his way forward. Setting up moves here, Andrew, where are the places that you look for them, and how do you try and get into the right positions to affect the pass?
So you can really pass into all three corners under the right circumstances, but the best place to pass, no doubt about it, is through turn one. So if you can get a nice long run down that long front straightaway and really throw it in there, what you can do is you can do almost a slide job through turn one, and if you get clear of them on the exit, then you've basically got the position made. But if you don't get clear, it's a big risk, because then you are at risk at the cars behind you coming in and attacking you down Long Pond straightaway and into turn two. So there are pluses and minuses of every passing zone at every corner on this track, and it's really about management of your race and of your pace and of your tools to make sure that you're doing this correctly and executing the passes cleanly.
And in terms of tire wear, how much more does the bumpy surface and the relative lack of grip that you have here compared to the newer version affect how the tires last over the course of the fuel run?
Yeah, I think there is a little bit of a difference. I think that you do get just a little bit more temperature, especially early on in the run. As the run goes on, I think that it sort of equalizes out between the two tracks, but definitely early on in the run, you find a little bit more wear, a little bit more heat in the tires. And that's probably why we're just a little bit more spread out than we would probably have seen if we were at the newer scan of this track. But at the same time, when you're going slightly slower, it does mean that it wears slightly less as the run goes on. So it all equals out basically by the end of the run, I think.
Looks like Andrew Marquez has a bit of a rocket ship at this point as we've got a car off the track. It's Brian Spots in the 17, and we'll try and get... Ooh, he's to the inside wall. That shouldn't bring out the caution, because as we've seen so far this year, if the car's down low and out of the racing line, then he's not going to be the cause of the caution. Brian Spots has taken the tow back to pit lane, so he's managed to reset without bringing out the first caution of the day. We'll grab a replay of what happened there, but here comes Marquez. We were talking just about how strong that car is looking, and halfway through the run, Marquez already now up to 8th position. He slid back early on the start, but looking forwards, but now has a 5-second deficit to Will Lyon in front of him.
Yeah, really strong stuff from Andrew Marquez so far, and this is really where we're going to see just how good his car is now that he has some clean air, about 4 seconds to Will Lyon, as you say. Is he going to be able to start reeling in Will Lyon, or is Will going to continue to draw out that gap just a little bit? So this will be really key for Marquez if he's going to contest in this race, if he's going to be able to catch Will Lyon here. But we got some battling a little bit between the teammates at the front for second position, Adriana.
Yeah, looks like Robert Milechka's got the tools dialed in to be able to close the gap to Hugo Olsen in the yellow submarine in front. Let's check out what happened to Brian Spots here. And just on the exit of turn 2, that is a vicious impact into the wall, and we'll grab one more look at it from his onboard perspective. But once that car went, maybe it's a little bit too much weight, Jacker. He doesn't clip the inside curb at turn 2, which you might see, but that was unsavable the moment the car stepped around on him.
Yeah, it looks like he just had probably a little bit too much front wing. If I'm making an assessment there, I think when he landed out of the corner, the rear just wanted to keep on rotating. So I think that the front end was just a little bit too planted for him, a little bit too much front wing, and it just rotated around freely at the corner exit. And once it does that, there's basically no saving it, nothing he could do. So unfortunate incident for Brian Spots, and day done for him.
Yeah, no, that will be day done, and he is not just taking the tow, but he has left the racetrack as well, retiring from this race. You can see at the front of the train down in towards turn number 1, John Silver, Laura Gerhardt, Robin Glenix mixing it up with one another. Alexis Newsom in the white, blue, and red car down to the inside on Aaron McQuarrie for the scorers team. Of course, you'll ramp up the corner and get the momentum down into the tunnel turn, and we saw Adam Blocker impressive around the outside, but Newsom's going to be tentative. And they'll hold it side by side, but a slide job. Newsom's gone on forward, and I mentioned the turn 2 curb. If you hit that, Andrew, it's out of your hands. You're not saving the car.
Oh yes, and the curb on this old scan is definitely much more violent than the new scan. The new scan, it's a little bit easier on that inside of the turn 2, although it can still trap you for sure. But this old scan in particular, if you hit that curb, you're basically got a one-way ticket to the outside wall. So You definitely want to give it a little bit of a wide berth, but sometimes that can be difficult, especially when you go too wide through there. So good job from both of them to make it through there nice and safe. And Alexis Newsom really does look strong here, Arjuna. I believe she's up now 10 positions in just 14 laps.
I think it's 8, based on the timing that I have, but never trust a commentator's math. That's what we like to say. But she is working her way forward. She's going to start, though, coming into those same pockets of air that Andrew Marquez now finds himself trapped in. Fastest lap this race is a 42.417. Last time by, Hugo Olsen actually did a 42, excuse me, no, got that the wrong way around. 42.327, the fastest lap of the race from Hugo Olsen. Doesn't compare to the car in front of him, as Laura Gerhardt had a bit of a bobble. What happened to her coming down through turn 2? Or she's just about got control of that machine, but from fighting for a top 10 to now fighting to stay inside the top 20, it changes just like that.
Yeah, unfortunate incident for Laura Gerhardt there. She had been really strong today. I think that was probably one of her better qualifying runs that we've seen from her all season, and was looking for a really strong top 10 run there. But I think it was actually turn 1 that she lost it coming out of turn 1 there, Arjuna. And yeah, this is another one where I think she just got a little bit maybe a little bit behind on her tools. You can see she loses it much sooner into the corner. Actually, probably right at the apex, she started losing the rear. And so I think she just probably, in this case, did have a little bit too much weight jacker. And there's a really big bump on this old scan right on the bottom of turn 1 there. And it just throws Laura Gerhardt around. She was fortunately able to save it and continue on, but that's put her well back of the field now.
Yeah, she has just about stayed in the draft of Jason Wallace.
Whoa,
that was Alexander Van der Sande, who has, what car control there, and that looks like a mirror incident to what we were just talking about, because I think that was turn 1, think that was the very same thing that happened. Could that be something in the setup for Powerslide Motorsports?
I was just about to say, Arjuna, keep in mind that those are basically 2 consecutive laps between 2 Powerslide Motorsports cars, both losing it through turn 1 in almost identical ways. You can see Alexander Van der Sande, again, he goes down to the bottom here, hits that bump, and when he hits the bump, it just upsets the rear of the car enough, and it's almost a mirror image. He was able to save it just a little bit sooner than Laura was, and was able to keep going, only lost 1 position miraculously, I think. Possibly 2 with Crane and Will Lyon getting by, but it was a great save, both from Laura Gerhardt, but especially Alexander Van der Sande, and yeah, if I'm Powerslide Motorsports right now, I'm going to be sweating bullets here and making sure that I'm maybe dialing in some extra negative weight jack or some front ARBs if there is any left in their set to dial in, because it definitely doesn't seem like their car is handling well through turn 1 right now.
2 consecutive incidents, 2 consecutive saves, though. That's the important thing. They kept it out of the wall. Yes, Gerhardt may have lost a bunch more positions. Van der Sande still finds himself in 7th, although he has lost the draft of the cars in front. It's really started to spread out. Joshua Chin leads the field down in towards turn number 2, that tunnel turn. The cars cycling at the tail end of the lead lap just about now, working themselves across the start-finish line. So lap traffic is going to be a reality of this race, assuming, knock on wood, if the commentator's curse comes out, it's not my fault, I'm going to say that. Hopefully we'll see some green flag stops. Hopefully we'll see the traffic play a factor as well. That was in Glenix getting past Silva through turn 2 again, and not typically the easiest passing zone, but we've seen plenty of passes through the 8 degrees of banking there. Oh, Newsom!
And Alexis Newsom almost loses it. Wow, these cars are loose here today, Arjuna. Yeah, so first of all, Robbo and Glenix there, yeah, he was really, really close to Silva through turn 2, and that's definitely not my favorite way to get by someone, but sometimes you just have to do it. But then Alexis Newsom coming out of turn 3, she nearly does the exact same thing that we saw Gerhardt and Van der Sande do. So really good car control again from Newsom to save that, but that's undone some of the great work that she had done. I believe she'd gotten all the way up to 11th spot there, and now that's put her right back to 13th again, right back into the thick of the battle.
So this is the actual replay. We got there eventually. Live broadcasting is miraculous sometimes. You can just see how close that they got to one another, and I wonder if Silva even got a little bit squirrely given how he rolled off the momentum coming out of that corner. And just watch here for Newsom as she rounds turn 3. That's just loose. That's not necessarily the bumps, because I think a lot of the incidents that we've seen so far might not necessarily have happened at the newer version of Pocono here on iRacing. It's a bit smoother, has a bit more grip. This track, you and I were wondering why we went here and we were going to rib relentlessly on Adam Blocker, but it is producing some interesting racing.
Yeah, and I think what I saw from Newsom there is what happened is she had to take the extreme outside and then tried to cut down, and that's what got her loose, was she lifted off the throttle and really cut down. And that's what made her get loose coming off the corner there. As we see on screen here, nice move from Adam Blocker getting around his teammate Robert Malechka. That looked almost a little bit coordinated, I think, just to keep these cars single file through turn 2 between the teammates. But it definitely looks like as this run has worn on, Adam didn't look the fastest of the power slide drivers at the beginning, but he's certainly looking faster now.
Maybe getting more comfortable with that car. Maybe he saved a bit of tires as well. Gil Ribeiro and David Porcelli have swapped around for P15. Ribeiro, another car that didn't put in a qualifying lap, but he's worked himself +8 as well as Newsom. Of course, Newsom was looking even better before that little moment that she had rounding herself through turn number 3. So coming towards the pit stop window bit by bit, 22 laps in the books as we work. Lap 23 of 85, Ribeiro runs just a little bit higher, which is where you want to be later in the run, as Hugo Olsen will come down to pit lane. So right on cue, we're talking about pit lane, and there comes the Swede.
Yeah, and I like this strategy call from Olsen getting in just that little bit early, because I do think that there is a little bit of a tire advantage. It's not necessarily as big as we've seen at some tracks, but there is probably about 3 or 4 tenths of a second a lap that Hugo has available to him. So if he comes in 1 or 2 laps in front of some of these drivers, he might just be able to get just that little bit closer to Josh Chin and have the fresh tires. But the big thing for Hugo Olsen is that he's going to be coming out actually into some traffic here, but on the lead lap. So he's going to have a draft, I believe, or he might not have a draft here, but he's very close to the back, so he might get a sniff of a draft, which would be even better for him. But this could potentially get him in front of Josh Chin in a way that he couldn't do it on track, as Robert Malechka gets very close to the outside wall coming out of turn 1 there.
So did Adam Creighton, and to correct you, I think you just called him Wilson, not Hugo.
Oh, sorry. Hugo Olsen, sorry.
Wilson Olsen or Hugo Nato. That sounds like a scary combination at Indianapolis.
Oh, that would just be terrifying, wouldn't it? It would be Wilson's qualifying prowess
exactly.
and Hugo's racing prowess. That would just be absolutely terrifying.
And, of course, the news this past week that Open Wheels and the Open Wheels 500 will return. Yours truly will be taking over the management of the event after Tanner Watkins put on 2 iterations of the greatest race in sim racing. And, I mean, Andrew, the iRacing Indy 500 is special. Don't get me wrong. But you, as a driver, can attest.
Sorry, Newsom just nearly lost it coming out of turn 3 again. But go ahead, Arjuna.
No, she's on the ragged edge. But you can attest to the fact that in the month of May, in our virtual month of May, you get unlimited attempts at qualifying. So there's some pressure. There's not as much pressure as you feel during the Open Wheels 500 when you've got just 3 attempts to get it done. As Malechka locks it up on the entry to pit lane, that might just be a penalty, or it's a fairly high speed limit here, so he might have got it slowed down in time. But you know what that pressure is like, as Van der Sant will come in as well. To put the qualifying attempt in with the car as loose as it is in Indy qualifying, it's so great that we're going to have that return this year.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've had experience with both setups, and both qualifying routines sort of emphasize different talents, where the official iRacing 500, it really forces you to drive as hard as you possibly can and make it, because you have so many attempts where you just have to be precise to the 1,000th of an inch every corner of each of those 4 laps. With the Open Wheels 500 qualifying format, you really have to find a way to get your car working extremely well, because if you mess up and you don't have any attempts left, you've gone home. You're done. Your month's over. So it's a different kind of pressure, and both have their positives and negatives, and both present unique challenges. So I'm really looking forward to hopefully participating in both this year.
Here comes Josh Chin working lap 28. He'll stay out on track this time by as well. Now, in terms of lap times, 42.4 for Chin this time by, 42.8 for Adam Blocker. Hugo Olsen has only done a 42.5, so it's not as though he is gaining that much time out on track with fresh rubber. I think traffic might have played a bit of a factor here, because you can see plenty of dirty air for Hugo Olsen to deal with, Andrew.
No, but the key for Hugo Olsen is it's been 3 or 4 laps now, so if he's getting 2 or 3 tenths a lap, that might just be enough to leapfrog Josh Chin. But the big thing here, as you mentioned, is he's got to be using these drafts here to his advantage. So if he can find a way to use these cars as a bit of a leapfrog sort of stepping stone type deal, that might just be enough to get by Chin. But I do believe that we might have Chin on pit road this time by.
Here comes Joshua Chin in the purple private label Team Hype with Team Talent Machine. Blocker will stay out. Line will come in as well this time by. Take a look at the track map. You can see where the various contenders are. Hugo Olsen is in the number 3
Chin.
machine. Oh, and Chin's made a mistake in pit lane. I will refrain from the comments that are springing right to my tongue. I will bite my lips. That is not the first time we've seen Josh Chin make a mistake in pit lane, and is that all that Hugo Olsen needs to take the race lead? Because there goes Olsen, and Malechka should follow him through as well. Power slide now running 1 and 2.
I can't believe that we just saw what we saw there. Chin getting into his box, he just locks up the brakes, trying to get in and get stopped in time, and goes sideways into the box. And I hate to say it, you've held your brakes, but yeah, this is not the first time we've seen Josh Chin make a mistake on pit road. And yeah, I think that this really puts him in a very difficult position for the rest of this race.
Just watch here with the onboard. He's just a little too fast in, and then takes him a while to actually get it turned around and back into his box. It's a 4-point turn in effect. That would be painful. So where? Sorry, go ahead.
Where did Adam Block? I was just going to say, I believe Adam Blocker's on pit lane, or was on pit lane. Was he able to also get in front of Josh Chin? He was. So that is 3 power slide drivers in front of Josh Chin now.
Changes just like that, and we will need a second stop at some point in this race. So there's still a long way to go. Olsen is now significantly offset from the cars behind him. 7 laps the difference between Olsen and Blocker with their first pit stop, as now everyone except Rashad Craig, Mark Murphy, Zach Spreitzer, and Jason Wallet are yet to come down onto pit lane. There's Jason Wallet, who will actually come down in that number 23 car. There is Rashad Craig, but he's only now 4 and a bit seconds in front of Olsen, so really not in a perfect position. Mark Murphy has let Adam Block go on through, so as it runs, net after the pit stops, Hugo Olsen 1.5 seconds clear of Adam Blocker. 7/10 clear will be Robert Malechka then in third. Joshua Chin only 1.2 back, so he's just within the drafting range, as here comes Mark Murphy, Rashad Craig down to pit road. Adam Crane is only, about a second back from Joshua Chin, so he's not really out of the mix either. And give a hand to Will Lyon, who we saw his road performance a week ago. He is running up there in the top 7 and looking quite comfortable in his new colors with Indy Alliance.
Yeah, very good job from Will Lyon. Yeah, the Indy Alliance car has been looking strong, although as I've said, that Alexis Newsom has found it, I think, a little bit more challenging than Will Lyon has so far today. But yeah, that was definitely a big swing that we saw in that pit stop cycle there. And as you mentioned, it isn't over yet, because we do have to do this one more time. And we saw a number of drivers either close to making errors or actually making errors. So anything can still happen here, Arjuna.
Not even at the halfway marker, as Gerhard and Macarelli duke it out. -8 for Gerhard, +6 for Macarelli. The tale of 2 different races there, as come down in towards turn number 3. Final car has pitted this time by the number 14 of Spreitzer. with an 8.5 second pit stop. We have also seen, interestingly, a bit of a delta in the minimum and maximum times with the pit stops, Andrew. Hugo Olsen, one of the shortest, which is 8.3 stationary. Then you've got the likes of Will Lyon, 10.2 stationary. What's the difference there?
So that's because Hugo Olsen didn't go the full tank on his first pit stop, so he didn't have to have quite as much fuel as the likes of Will Lyon. Will Lyon probably ran that tank absolutely dry and had to have maybe probably 2 or 3 more gallons of fuel on that first pit stop. But keep in mind, Arjuna, that because Hugo Olsen pitted earlier on this cycle, he's going to have to take more fuel on the next cycle.
He is 1.7 clear. Now, lap time's pretty consistent across of the top 5. Chin definitely looks like he might have the fastest car of them all, although last time by Milechka was 300ths quicker than Joshua Chin. Those are the margins that we're dealing with here. Other than a couple of battles up and down through the field, it is stretching out with that green flag cycle under our belt. Porcelli around the outside of Macquarie in the bright orange number 20. Another car making some headway. He's +7. Number 21 in front of him, though, Gil Ribeiro. Biggest mover on the day so far. 12 positions gained after not putting in a qualifying lap time. 23 started, 1 retiree. That was Brian Spots, who had a big impact out of turn 2 into the inside wall. 22 Indy cars still out there and running. And we talked about the lap traffic. It's a reality here, Andrew. Here comes Olsen. He's already worked his way past a couple of cars. Plenty more to go.
Yeah, and now, did something happen to Alexis Newsom on that pit cycle there, Arjuna? Because she is all the way down in 18th position. And she had been up fighting with the likes of Gil Ribeiro and Rashad Craig before that pit cycle. So it does look like either there might have been some sort of speeding penalty or maybe a repair of some damage.
No, it looks like there was just a mistake, similar to what we saw with Chin. We'll get a replay in a moment's time, but it was 40.2 seconds in the lane, and that's about 10 seconds longer than everyone else. The stop time was normal. It wasn't like she went longer than anyone else, so that was a mistake, and I'm not sure if it was on the entry, on the exit. We'll find out, because the RaceSpotTV replay machine misses nothing. Here we go. Let's take a look, and oh, she's up on the jack. She's going to light up the tires as she drops off and gets underway.
Just really unfortunate there. It just really goes to show just how much power these cars make, and especially on an oval like this where the car isn't very well balanced going at a low speed, simply because the suspension setup is just so weird to make it go left through these corners at the speeds that they do. So it's really, really easy to just light up the tires a little bit too much, especially if you hit the gas just a little bit early as you drop off the gas and drop the clutch. So I think that was just a small mistake from Alexis there.
And she's in danger of going a lap down. Hugo Olsen in that yellow submarine closing as Newsom is battling with Mark Murphy just up the road. See the seams on the track as well. They work their way through. While things settle down very briefly, I wanted to address what happened this past weekend, Andrew, which was a fantastic race at the Auto Club Speedway, and it might be the final time that NASCAR goes there in its super speedway or speedway configuration, because of course we've talked about this before. Auto Club going to be converted to a short track, and I really do hope the higher-ups, the powers that be, see the race that unfolded and leave it as it is, because when Roger Penske built that track all those years ago, it's produced some great stock car racing, produced some great open-wheel racing, and just like we're talking about how Pocono needs to see Indy cars return, I'd love to see Auto Club see Indy cars return. Yeah,
I've railed about this before, Arjuna, so you know my stance. It definitely should stay as it is, but I have a sneaky suspicion that the almighty dollar will be what rules the day, and having a shorter track with more people concentrated and then having room for different things on the grounds of the facility right now will take precedence over the potential good racing that we saw and could see for many years to come. So it's an unfortunate situation for Auto Club for sure, but definitely at least we have the memories and the tapes of all the good races that we saw there, because there have been so many classics there through the years, in, as you mentioned, both in NASCAR and in IndyCar. But right now we're riding on board with Adam Blocker, and I just noticed that gap to Hugo Olsen has now ticked under a second, Arjuna. Yeah,
I think the traffic's actually worked in Blocker's favor. He's been good in the dirty air. We've seen that so far this race, and watch the hands, watch the gearing as well. You'll use maybe down even into third when you're in heavy traffic in this car. And of course, when NASCAR comes and visits here, it's one of the few places in the past where you've actually seen drivers shifting to get an advantage out on track. Some drivers don't like that, some do, but one of those things that makes this facility so interesting. There's that turn 3, the one modeled after the Milwaukee Mile. We know how much Blocker loves the Milwaukee Mile. I think that is one of the most challenging corners that you can drive in an Indy car, and that's why Milwaukee is so challenging as well, because it's so flat and you really have to understand what's going on with the car, when you can get onto the power in order to go fast.
Yeah, and I would say that this is more challenging than the Milwaukee corner, simply because you have maybe half the downforce that you have at Milwaukee with the Pocono Speedway package. So it's going faster down the straight into the corner, and yes, it's not quite the same radius, but you just have so little downforce there, and if you make one small mistake, it's so easy to lose the cars. We already saw Alexis Newsom nearly lost the car through there once. We've seen a number of cars get very close on exit, and in order to maximize your speed through there, you really have to be precise, not just with your steering, but also with your gas pedal, because you do have to lift substantially through there. So definitely probably the most challenging oval corner in iRacing and in real world racing as well.
Looking rearwards from Hugo Olsen as we get a great view underneath the track coming through the tunnel turn. Now this is, again, it's an old Pocono, so a lot of our cam packs are a bit old as well, so excuse us. Again, the beauties of live broadcasting, but you can just see how Blocker is carving through the field. Now that gap under 6/10, well and truly in the draft of the cars in front. It's going to help him down this long main straightaway, might hurt him a little bit as they work their way in towards turns 1 and turn 2 as well, where you'll be searching for a little bit of clean air. Malechka's closing bit by bit as well. Chin's in the fight. Crane is in the fight. Top 5 split by 3 seconds, the closest it's been since we dropped the green.
Yes, and I think that the one thing that's really hurting Hugo Olsen, and I'm going to preface this by saying that Alexis is a very conscientious driver, so this is not by any stretch of the imagination a knock on Alexis, because she has every right to do what she's doing. But she is a fast driver who's trying to stay on the lead lap right now. So where the other drivers that Hugo Olsen has encountered, he's been able to sort of deal with and get by quickly, Alexis has been much harder for her to deal with. As we saw, they nearly actually got together, as I think Newsom was actually trying to get out of his way a little bit there. But yeah, so it took Hugo Olsen maybe 3 or 4 laps to really get around Alexis, because she was also trying to make her way back through the field. So it's, I think, really delivered a lot of dirty air to the front of Hugo Olsen. It's just allowed this front pack to really accordion back up together, I think.
And it goes back to what we saw just this past weekend. Yes, it was a street course, not an oval, but of course the 2022 NTT IndyCar Series is now underway, and Scott McLaughlin, Scotty Mack, taking his first victory from pole into victory lane, but it wasn't as easy as that. It was a lot of fighting, and then those final 10-15 laps. First, it was Jimmy Johnson playing the team game as he tried to help Alex Palou get his way past the New Zealander, and then those final 2 laps, it was Devlin DiFrancesco in the Andretti Autosports machine that played a little bit of a cork in the bottle there. And that's the thing about IndyCar, right? It's the fact that you're allowed to fight to stay on the lead lap. It's very different to what we see in other... Oh, who was that? That's Newsom!
Yeah, I think she had a little bit of an issue coming through turn 2 there, Arjuna.
Now, has she hit the wall? And is she going to come straight down to pit lane? Yes, she will. So the disappointing day for Alexis Newsom will continue to roll on. Adam Blocker, by the way, is now 1.5 back from Hugo Olsen. So traffic gives, traffic takes. That's the reality of the situation. And at least for the time being, he'll have to reset his focus up front. Let's take a look then at what happened to Alexis Newsom in that Indy Alliance machine. So working through the tunnel turn, Again, we get that fantastic camera angle that's going to tell us so much about what went on. Let's jump on board. This will be a little bit easier for us to understand. Fifth gear, a little bit of the curb on the inside and into the wall, and instantly that steering goes right hand down.
Yeah, so we mentioned the curb earlier. So it can do two things for you. If you hit it sort of early on, it can throw you sideways. But if you hit it sort of late, just a little bit past the apex like Alexis did, it basically throws the front of the car towards the outside wall. And once that happens, you basically have nothing that you can do. You're just a passenger going straight towards that outside wall.
What has happened to Adam Blocker? A 44.5 last time by. It's about 1.2 seconds slower than the cars in front. Now he is back up to speed. Joshua Chin is right on the tail as Blocker has slid down to fourth.
Yeah, he's lost 2 positions here. That was a big moment for Adam Blocker, I think. So we're going to have to figure out while we were looking at that replay exactly what happened.
Yeah, and I'm not sure where it was, but hopefully there's no damage to that car because Blocker has been looking good. You can see how dark the track has got as well. We'll take a look here. Believe this is coming down into turn 3. Lots of speed. Oh, does he get into the dirty air of the car in front of him, or is that the same setup issue that we were postulating, that maybe these power slide drivers are just riding over the bumps and then the rear gets loose here, Andrew? Jump on board.
Yeah, you can just see he basically did the same thing that Alexis Newsom did earlier. Was he was running sort of that third lane, and he tried to cut down, and when he tried to cut down, the car is just so on edge that the back end just starts to come around. And it took everything that Adam had to be able to save that car and keep it out of the concrete wall. And you can see from on board with Robert Malechka, that was probably not what he wanted to see from his teammate coming through turn 3 there. But great save from Adam, and he has managed to get it back going. And it looks like, even though his tires are probably not really enjoying where they're at right now, he was able to get back going again. So that's a great thing for Adam's race.
And what happened to Van der Sande? Oh, I hear a spin.
We got a spin.
And it's Laura Gerhard. Another power slide car through turn 3. This power slide setup seems to be right on the edge of grip as Joshua Chin will try and get to the inside of Adam Blocker into turn 1. Laura Gerhard still trying to build up the momentum once more as back behind her, the battle rages on for 4th.
This is definitely not what the power slide drivers wanted to see, with so many of their teammates having small issues, and so far they've all been able to save them, which is nigh on a miracle, Arjuna, that all of these drivers have been able to save it. But you can see Laura here, she got in, and it's almost the same thing with Adam Blocker, where she just hits the seam and the rear of the car is just so loose, but she's able to save it, which I will say that's a nice thing about the new tire model that we've had on this IndyCar for a while now, is that you are actually able to catch a slide like that. But this setup for the power slide drivers is definitely on edge, and they're going to have to be on top of their tools for the rest of this race, because I think it's only going to get worse as this track gets more rubbered in and the temperature starts to come down as we get on in the afternoon here.
Take a quick look at the weather. You can see it was a big cloud that covered up the circuit for a moment. It is lightened back up. It's relatively cool. We're racing in the virtual March, the start of virtual March, just touching about 2 p.m. here as we work past the halfway mark of this race. 30 degrees on the track, so relatively cool, and not much wind. Some of the times when we come here to Pocono, Andrew, the wind is really blowing across the track, and we talk about the differences of the 3 different corners here. That just adds to the challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the reasons that I say that the car tends to get looser as the track gets cooler is basically the way that these cars are set up is that they'll basically be mechanically a little bit tight and aerodynamically a little bit loose. So as the track cools down, you tend to go just a little bit faster and a little bit faster, and the faster you go, the better your aero works. So it can shift the balance basically forwards on the car, and that's why you see these cars getting looser as the track cools down. Particularly, you saw when the big cloud came over, we had 2 power slide drivers spin there. So that's basically what's happening to these drivers on track. So even something as small as cloud cover can take a car that is handling just right on the edge and put it over that edge. So that just goes to show just how close these drivers and these setups are to that edge there.
Now we are close to seeing the first trips down to pit lane for the second cycle. Robin Glennox has actually pit, but here comes Hugo Olsen. This was the man that we were waiting to see. Again, he pitted the earliest of the lead group. Joshua Chin's going to follow him in as well. Maybe try and pick each other up in the draft and slingshot their way forward. Blocker doesn't make a mistake. Chin doesn't make a mistake this time on pit entry. Now the question will be, can he avoid making a hash of the incident down into the box itself?
And this is really interesting strategy from Chin, as he does, in fact, get into the box here. But he really went one of the longest on the last round. So now he's trying to do that undercut that worked for Hugo Olsen. But this is sort of on the early side coming in here. So he's really going to have to save some fuel here and save some tires, more importantly, as he gets through this stint. So it's going to pay off, I think, a little bit for him now, but he's going to have to pay it back on the back end. He might not have the tires to fight come the end of this race.
Blocker into pit lane, followed in by Alexander Van der Sant. Did Alexander Van der Sant pick up a cone on the entry and deposit it?
I believe he did.
Yeah, deposit it right in the middle of the fast lane. That's not pit etiquette there. Blocker is still in pit lane. He's got a speeding penalty. Adam Blocker has got a speeding penalty. My, oh my. So there goes Van der Sant rolling off of pit lane. Malechka and Crane will come in this time by. We'll watch the replay of what happened to Blocker and Van der Sant in a moment or two's time. At least for now, let's try and pick up where Olsen is and where Robert Malechka will be. As Malechka works his way into the box, Olsen is rounding turn 3 and already has built up a whole heap of momentum. Blocker will finally release himself. He is now basically a lap down. He's giving Malechka a bit of a tow, but Olsen will retake the race lead. Adam Crane is now closer than he has ever been in the battle for the win here in Pocono.
My, oh my, how things change and then change again. And I will say, I think we might have been a little bit unfair to Alexander Van der Sant. I do think it was Adam Blocker who collected that cone and deposited there, and just so happened to be where we, near where we cut to Van der Sant. But yeah, that was a very unfortunate pit entry from Adam Blocker, and it's basically made any top 10 in this race nearly impossible for Blocker without getting a substantial help from the yellow flags. But so his only hope basically is passing his teammate Hugo Olsen, and then
that was Gil Ribeiro, who is on very worn tires, trying to defend from Will Lyon, who was just pitted, has a rocket ship of a machine, at least for now. Ribeiro almost lost it coming out of turn 3. We'll see now, if we can, what happened to Adam Blocker, because you're right, we were likely unfair. There comes Blocker on towards pit road. And, yeah, he doesn't just speed, he completely butchers that pit entry.
Well, I don't think he was actually trying to pit Arjuna. I think that he just lost the rear of the car again coming off the corner, and then
I think he's coming to pit because he comes low, and I think he gets unsettled while trying to pit and then commits when maybe it would have been smarter to go around and have one more crack at it.
Yeah, that either way, I think that last minute juke back to the left here was really not smart. And I think if he had the fuel to go around one more time, he definitely should have, because there was no way that he was going to make that pit entry, regardless of whether he made it into the pit road safely. He was never making that on speed.
Yeah, maybe it was just a lack of fuel. That's a good point. And one thing that you do have to remember at a lap as long as this, he's not always going to have enough fuel in that tank to be able to putter around for 2.5 miles without losing a bunch of time in and of itself. Blocker now is at least back up to 12th, but it's a good job that he had done the job early in the season. The fact that he had built up those points, built up a buffer that's going to enable him to use the drop weeks, came into this race about 160-odd points clear, should still be champion when all things are said and done.
Yeah, I don't think that there's any catching Adam Blocker, no matter what happens in this race for the championship. But yeah, definitely probably not the way that he wanted to end his season. I will say that. And probably also not the way that he wants to go into the Lionheart series on Wednesday, Arjuna.
True. And you and I were talking about that. Andrew, you better get practicing after this one, because that's the most competitive roster that the series has likely ever seen.
Yeah, absolutely. I just can't wait for this season to get going. I know we talked about this last week, but I feel like talking about it again this week because, yeah, the level of competition that's going to be seen in the IndyCar, in the Lionheart series, is going to be incredible. If you've enjoyed watching these past 12 weeks in the Open series, we'll do it again next season, but you should also be tuning in on Wednesday nights to the Lionheart series, because that action is going to be just every bit as good as this and more, I think.
It's a doubleheader this week as well. We've got IndyCar on Wednesday and then Retro Series on Thursday. Slightly earlier start time, 7:05 Eastern, Pacific, 10:05 Eastern. Make sure you get connected with us here at RaceSpotTV heading into the 2022 Lionheart Racing Series season. Broken up at the front though. We've gone caution-free from the start of this race as we work lap 63, just about to come to an end. It's 2.2 seconds, the gap out front between Hugo Olsen and Malechka. Then in third, it's Adam Crane, a further 1.7 back with Joshua Chin, just 2 seconds off that final step of the podium. Rashad Craig, coming into pit this time by, will relinquish Alexander Van der Sant to have fifth spot, while Will Lyon will then take sixth from him. Andrew Marquez seventh will be the final car on the lead lap. And we talked about the traffic. The fact that we've gone green from the start is what's meant that there's been so much traffic. It would have been a very different sort of a race, Andrew, if we had had cautions really mix things up here.
Yeah, and I think that's probably the only thing that'll save a decent result for Adam Blocker here, is he might actually be able to even get away with an 8th place finish here out of this race if he's lucky. But the one thing to keep in mind is you mentioned 2 seconds between Hugo Olsen and Robert Malechka, but between the two of them is that number 2 car of Adam Blocker. So he is still trying to find a way to get, first of all, past Rashad Craig here, but second of all, past Hugo Olsen and back on the lead lap.
Now, gap has actually come down between the top two. It's 1.25. That splits the Swede and the American as they work their way down into turn 3. Blocker has gotten past a bit of lap traffic. Believe that's Jason Wallet. Malechka will dispose of him as well, as across the start-finish line, 20 laps to go in the race and in the season. Plenty more races to come this week, but of course this is that main strength of field race when the biggest, the best come out to play. And what a season it has been so far. Now back up to 1.9 as Olsen stretches the legs once more. Crane is actually closing. It does seem as though working away past the lap traffic is bottlenecking these cars. It's growing the gaps, it's shrinking the gaps, but they're ultimately staying pretty consistent once you work your way past the traffic.
Yeah, so what's basically happening is Hugo Olsen is, every time he gets within about a second of the next car that he's about to put a lap down, he's starting to really get some aero push, and those older tires compared to Malechka are sort of letting Malechka catch back up. But then once he gets past the next lap car and gets some clean air on his tires, that's allowing him to sort of stretch the gap back out, because Malechka is basically always in the dirty air of Hugo Olsen and Adam Blocker in front of him. So that's what's creating sort of this accordion back and forth effect in the top 3. But there's only one more car that Hugo Olsen really has to deal with. That is, unless Adam Blocker chooses to try and unlap himself. So it'll be interesting to see what happens for these next 17 or so laps here, because the decisions that not only the lap car makes, but also that Hugo makes and Adam Blocker makes, could have a big impact on the outcome of this race.
So the reason why Blocker would want to get in front is if we do get a caution, he would be back on the lead lap. The reason he might not want to be in front is he doesn't want to affect the fight between his teammates. It will be the cat and mouse, the catch it, the conversation rather in that voice chat might be interesting, because I know that Adam Blocker likes to keep to himself in a road race, which is fair enough. You want the concentration to go as quick as you can. But these ovals, I'm not saying you don't need to concentrate, but you've got a little bit of spare brain capacity where you can plan and coordinate with the rest of your team.
Yeah, and especially on the longer straightaways, it gives you a little bit of a chance to rest and maybe coordinate a little bit more than you would, say, on a road course where you're turning for a larger percentage of the lap and really having to hit your apexes a little bit more. Yeah, I would say that it's definitely going to be some interesting conversations between Olsen, Malechka, and Blocker in the Power Slide Discord. But I think the big story right now is just how strong Adam Crane has looked. We're looking at him right now, and he's really done a great job. And more importantly, where everyone else, barring Olsen and Malechka, have made some small mistakes throughout the course of this race, Crane has been another one who's really done a good job of keeping his nose clean throughout this race. And I would say that his car, out of everyone's, has looked the most stable throughout this run as well.
Yeah, no, I would agree with you there. I think Team Talent had a good setup as well, and Jason Brophy will take full credit for that. Brophy's not racing today, the last person to win in this series when we came here, and it was live on RaceSpotTV because he's, of course, part of the eNASCAR Coca-Cola crew for some of the drivers there, and so the night before their races is always their chance to jump into one of the official races and do a little bit of testing, so they're getting up to speed for a race at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway. A bit of smoke coming off turn number 3, but...
Oh, and here comes Blocker on Olsen.
So he is going to go for it. He is looking, and he's got it done. So now there's going to be some dirty air being fed to Hugo Olsen. The top 3 split by 2 seconds now. Don't just count out Malechka, but Crane is right there as well.
Yeah, this is some interesting strategy here. I'm not sure that I agree with, from a strategic point of view at least. I'm not sure I would have done that if I were Adam Blocker now. From a selfish point of view, I completely understand what he's doing, and there, given how loose these cars get towards the end of the run, there is a decent chance that this could benefit him and we could get a caution. But at the same time, from a team standpoint, might not be the best thing, at least from Hugo Olsen's point of view.
Bit of fighting back in the pack. David Porcelli and Christian Macarelli have been playing the hopscotch with one another as Porcelli has held on to that 13th position. Macarelli sees Laura Gerhard in the green Power Slide Motorsports car right behind as towards turn 1 they come with 14 laps to go. Macarelli sliding up the track as Laura Gerhard, of course, recovering from her own moment coming out of turn 1. In the very next lap, we saw Deja Vu with a second Power Slide Motorsports car doing the very same thing. That was Alexander Van der Sat. Macarelli will hold it on the outside of the corner. Now, Porcelli's got some clean air in front of him, so ultimately it's Gerhard that's going to be feeling the most of the pain when it comes to the dirty air.
Yeah, being that third car is probably the least fun that you can have in the IndyCar, because there's just really nothing you can do, particularly when the cars fan out in the corners. There's so few ways you can get clean air to your nose. But at the same time, Laura has definitely looked really, really racy here all race long and in qualifying as well. So I'm sure she's just trying to find a way at this point to get around Macarelli. And if she does, then I think she definitely has the ability to pass David Porcelli as well.
Gap out front, still not closing enough just yet. 1.1 between the two teammates at the front. For those wondering, pit stop cycles are complete. We are going to the end from here. Question would be, with 9 cars on the lead lap, Andrew, if we get a caution with, let's say, 7 to go, would you risk it and come down for fresh tires?
It's really tough to say. The one thing that I will say about this tire is it takes about 2 or 3 laps to get the heat really back into it. So I think if a caution comes out now, then I'm coming down pit lane. If a caution comes out with 7 or 8 laps to go, I don't think I am, because I don't think that the tires will get up to temp quick enough to really make that difference.
So that might be the determining factor. It looks like Gerhard might have the momentum on the inside out of turn 3. That's interesting. Usually you'd expect the outside to have a bit more momentum. Macarelli will go down low once more. Try and sweep down through the corner and slide up the track, but Gerhard has the momentum. She has the outside line, uses that banking, almost knocks down the wall, holds on to the position. Back out front, still the gap maintained between Olsen and Malechka Adam Crane had a bit of a bobble coming out of turn 3. He's a little bit down on speed and will open up the gap to that car in front, the red and white power slide number 1. Joshua Chin closes bit by bit as well. Top 4 split by 4 seconds, and then a gargantuan 8 seconds back to Alexander Van der Sant. It might actually now be close, not for first in this championship, Andrew, but maybe for second in the championship, because coming into this race, it was, what, 70 points. Never mind, not as close as I thought it was. Should still be Van der Sant holding on to the second step.
Yeah, Van der Sant, he just had that consistency all year long. He doesn't necessarily win all the races, but he does place nicely in the top 5, whereas Robert Malechka just made a few errors over the course of the season that just, I think, cost him and just doesn't allow him to catch Van der Sant, even though he's having a better race here today.
9 to go. That gap is under 1 second. Olsen is being reeled in, and we talked about this earlier. Olsen's tires a couple of laps older than Malechka behind, as Blocker now moves his way in front of Rashad Craig. So after his incident, he's now at least back up to 8th. If the caution drops, watch out for the Michigan Blue of the number 2 machine across the line to make it 8 to go this time by. A little bit of lap traffic. Olsen should dispatch of that nice and easily, and in fact, he got all the draft into turn number 1. That will help him in keeping Malechka behind.
Yeah, that was sort of the ideal scenario for Olsen there, as he could use the entire front straight there to really maximize the speed, and then Rashad Craig did a good job of just letting Hugo Olsen have the corner, so definitely maximize the jump effect that he could potentially get there. But yeah, Malechka is definitely not going away here, Arjuna. It's down to under a second with just 8 laps to go, so this is still anybody's game here. If Malechka can just find a way to sort of break in into that sort of 0.8, 0.7 mark, that's when you really start to see the draft effect ramping up, and that's when he could potentially find a way to get into Hugo Olsen's sort of kitchen and really start to harass the back end of that car. But right now, he probably needs another 2 or 3 tenths. Oh, caution is out!
We were talking about late race drama, and David Porcelli has had an incident that has not only ripped the right front off his car, might also have involved John Silva in that number 12, but will bring out the caution and set up, I believe, a 3-lap or 4-lap shootout to the end here, and Hugo Olsen with those worn tires must just be cursing his luck.
This is probably the worst thing that could happen to Hugo Olsen right now, because he basically can't afford to come into the pits here. But at the same time, if you're Adam Blocker, if you're Alexander Van der Sant, Will Lyon, or Andrew Marquez, you're probably going to come into the pits and get fresh tires for this 3-lap shootout, because everyone, now that we're within 10 laps to go, everyone is going to be able to pass if you're on the lead lap and go to the front. So it's going to be lined up 1 through 7 lead lap cars before the lap down cars. So this is going to be a shootout to the end, Arjuna.
Let's see if we can pick up what happened here. Now, it's not meant to stop. We'll roll the replay. That's Macarelli. You can hear the incident in front. So that's John's. Oh, is there a separate incident that then mixes up John Silva? Oh, he loses it, I think, trying to slow down for the caution. So we've got 2 different things to pick our way through. Let's start, of course, what happened to David Porcelli out of turn 2. Oh, and a cruel way after surviving 78 odd laps for your race to come to an end. We'll take one more look with his onboard perspective. Just washes up the track coming through turn 2.
It's exactly the same thing that Alexis Newsom did earlier, Arjuna. He just gets a little bit too low, and the car just washes straight up into the exit of the turn 2 wall. And then Silva, I think, one of the things here is when you let off the gas like this,
yeah,
he basically... Oh, go
sorry,
ahead.
I'm going to cut you off, because that incident is important, but not as important as what is happening under this caution to close out the race. Hugo Olsen and Alexander Van der Sant and Adam Blocker will be 3 cars on the lead lap to not come down and pit, Malechka, Crane, Lyon, Marquez, and Chin will all come down for 4 fresh tires for a sprint to the end.
This is a really interesting call here. So Adam Blocker, even though he was basically the last car on the lead lap, chose to stay out. So he's chosen track position. Robert Malechka, who was in second place, gambles the other way and thinks, I've got 3 laps to go. These fresh tires will have enough time to get up to temperature and make a difference here. So this is a very, very interesting call. I'm not sure that I agree with Malechka's call, but I do think the Blocker probably did make a good call given who else came down pit road there.
You look at Malechka's call with the hindsight that Van der Sant and Blocker stayed out there. Now, if you're Van der Sant, you were still running in 5th, so maybe Malechka expected him to maybe come down as well. I think he would have always thought that Blocker would stay out there, and it would have just been 2 cars to work his way past to take the lead. Going back, though, to the point that we were talking about with Blocker and how hasty he was going to be to get back to the front, this is why you fight to stay on the lead lap.
Yeah, absolutely. This is exactly why he passed his teammate Hugo Olsen. He now does have, unbelievably, a shot at the win here. No one would have thought that it's possible, but he does have, with 3 laps to go, a legitimate shot at the win. He's passed Hugo Olsen once already this run. He can very easily do it again.
So we expect the cars not on the lead lap to be cycled to the tail end of the field. This time by, correct, Andrew?
Yeah, and you can see them, the lead lap cars are going to the bottom here. So Adam Blocker taking his place in 3rd. Here comes Robert Malechka as well. So basically every one of the lead lap cars is going to be lined up 1 through 7. So there will be no traffic, nowhere to hide for any of these drivers. It's going to be a straight up shootout for all 7 of these drivers. And I actually do think that all 7 of these or all 8 of these drivers, including Andrew Marquez at the tail end, do have a legitimate shot here, because I think it's about to get really, really crazy.
Lights are off on the pace car, 7.5 miles to decide this all. You know what's coming, Andrew? Prediction time? Well, I don't even know. All 8 drivers have a chance. The question will be, how quickly can the fresh tires surpass the worn rubber for the top 3?
I think I'm going to go with Hugo Olsen here. I know that he might be a little bit of a sitting duck, but Olsen, we already saw that Van der Sant didn't necessarily anticipate the initial start very well. I think that if Hugo Olsen can get a big enough jump here, he can make this work and hang on and use the fresh air. I'm going with Hugo Olsen.
So, out of turn 3, the one and only caution that we will have today will come to a close. If the yellow flag flies once more, that's race done. So it might not be 7.5 miles, it might be less. But the next flag will end the race. Top 3 cars, worn tires, those behind, fresh rubber. Here we go. Hugo Olsen gets a jump once more, about 7 car lengths clear of Alexander Van der Sant. But crucially, Malechka didn't get a jump as well. Here comes Joshua Chin to the inside.
Yeah, that was exactly the kind of start that Hugo Olsen needed. Chin nearly washes up into the side of Robert Malechka. Malechka holds on, and now they're fanning out too wide down the straightaway. This is the important part for Hugo Olsen. If he can emerge from turn 2 in the lead, then he's got this. If not, Van der Sant might just be able to steal it away from him.
We saw Blocker make a pass around the outside, but this time he'll go low and get past Van der Sant for second. Almost challenges for the lead as well. Chin has emerged in front of Malechka, but they've got a lot of ground to make up. Malechka's almost in the wall. Crane has gone on through. Malechka's dropping down to the tail end of the lead lap. Across the line, 2 laps to go. Olsen still leads.
Yeah, I do think Malechka did in fact hit the wall, but at the front, these 3 with the older tires, it's all between them right now. I don't think Crane and Chin have anything for him, and Crane did just get by Joshua Chin there. So unless there's a miracle, though, I think Hugo Olsen now has about a 6/10 of a second lead into turn 2. This could be all that he needed for Hugo Olsen. He did just enough on that first lap to really cement his hold on the front here.
It was fighting between Blocker and Van der Sant that also helped Olsen to build up the advantage. Crane did jump in front of Chin on the restart. The car that put it on pole and led at the early stages made the mistake on pit lane. Might have to settle for a top 5 finish. White flag in the air, 2.5 miles to go, and the Swede Hugo Olsen returns on a Monday night and looks to return to victory lane. He's 7/10 clear.
Excellent drive from Hugo Olsen. He's the one driver who never made a mistake, never put anything wrong in this entire race, and he is doing a great job here through turn 3 for the final time. What a race from Hugo Olsen making his return to Monday night.
It's been a great season. It's been a great race. What a way to close it off at the tricky triangle. But Hugo Olsen will make it 11 races, 11 victories in 12 for Powerslide Motorsports. He conquers the Pocono Mountains and emerges victorious after 85 tremendously exciting laps in the final race of the season. Remarkably, Adam Blocker recovers to second after making an error on the entry to pit lane. That will wrap up the championship very, very nicely in a weekend of celebration for Blocker, part of the Ilmor engineering team that powers the Chevy engines of the NTT IndyCar Series. Great result for him. Alexander Van der Sant got swarmed at the line, and Adam Crane will take the final step on the podium to close out the season. We wondered what would happen if a caution dropped. Well, we found out.
And it was pure chaos there at the end, Arjuna. What a race, though, from Hugo Olsen. He did exactly what he needed to do to take home that win. In his celebration, puts it into the outside wall there just a little bit, but we'll forgive him for a little bit of enthusiasm winning here on the Monday night strength of field. And what a race from Hugo Olsen, but what a season from Adam Blocker. I'm very comfortable in saying you're season 1 champion here in the IndyCar Open Series, and he put together one heck of a season start to finish, and just showing that resilience here once again today just shows why he is a champion in the Open Series, and he's been a champion in pretty much every series that he's ever driven in.
I think Hugo Olsen's actually broken the left rear of his car doing those celebrations. Joint celebrations for Adam Blocker and for Hugo Olsen. One a winner from the Pocono Mountains, one your winner for the 2022 Season 1 of the iRacing IndyCar Open Championship. Let's dive into our race results then. Only one caution, and it brought out a very close finish, but not close enough. Hugo Olsen took advantage of the fighting behind him to emerge victorious by half a second from Adam Blocker. Adam Crane stops it from being a Powerslide 1, 2, and 3 at the death, beating Alexander Van der Sant to the line by just 0.08 of a second. Joshua Chin on pole position brings the private label team hype with Team Talent number 4 to a top 5 finish after a mistake on pit entry. Will Line across the line in 6th, with Andrew Marquez and Malechka rounding out the top 8. Malechka into the wall on the restart, and that put to bed any hopes of a podium for him. Rashad Craig, Trace Shadid, the first cars 1 lap down to round out the top 10, while Gil Ribeiro, Aaron McQuarrie, Laura Gerhard, Mark Murphy, Christian Macarelli, Zach Spreitzer, John Silva, all 1 lap down. Jason Wallet, the only car to be 2 laps down. Tim Williams in 19th, with David Porcelli, the car that instigated and brought out the one and only caution that also mixed up John Silva. Then Robin Glennox, Alexis Newsom, and Brian Spots complete the field. Well, we'll wait for cars to come down into the victory booth to come and celebrate with us to close out the season. But what a season it's been so far. We'll take one final look at the schedule before we look forward. Started on the road courses and have flip-flopped back and forth between the finest ovals, the finest road courses across the world. And now we have plenty more excitement to look forward to, Andrew. But what a season it has been.
Absolutely incredible season. We've seen some of the best driving that I think I've ever seen in the IndyCar Open community. Whether it was the battles between Adam Blocker and Adam Crane on the road courses, the emergence of the likes of Will Lyon and Rashad Craig as real contenders week in, week out, the dominance of Powerslide, the battles that we've seen throughout the season on the ovals, on the road courses, on basically every type of circuit that we've been to, short tracks, everything. Top to bottom, this has been just a top drawer season, and it's a credit to the community that we've been able to witness this every Monday.
Let's bring on in Hugo Olsen then, victorious here to close out the season. And Hugo, it was that first pit stop that really set things up for you, going very early into the box and then finding yourself with some clean air. What was behind that strategy? Was it difficult to follow in the dirty air?
Well, it wasn't actually a strategy call. I was just so loose in the car. My teammates were on a setup I uploaded, and then I thought, yeah, it's quite cold, so I'm gonna make it a bit looser. And they complained that it was loose, and I was just hanging on the entire stint. And then I thought, okay, I'm gonna crash if I stay out for one more lap. So I had to come in and realized it was in the pit window, and then I just tried to go as hard as possible and save the necessary fuel to make it to the end, which played out quite nicely.
And on that final restart, Hugo, were you a bit concerned when you saw so many cars go down to pit road behind you, and did you think the fresh rubber was going to work out, or were you always somewhat confident that you'd be able to hold on for just 3 laps?
Yeah, I thought more people would stay out there, but I guess with the lapped cars being sent to the back, it opens up opportunities to take tires, and I think there was some type of advantage to that. But yeah, with the track position and clean air, it was quite tough to pass.
We don't often get to see you on a Monday, given that it's quite late at night for you, Hugo, but what does the rest of the year hold in store? Of course, building up to the month of May, the iRacing Indy 500. Plenty of racing still to go.
Yeah, this is good, like starting point here at Pocono for the month of May. Continuing with setup work, working with the car, teammates, and improving on driving as well. So looking forward for the Indy 500 in May, and also I hope to be able to do the Open Wheels 500 this year.
Still a long way to go before the month of November. Plenty of racing to go before that. Congratulations, Hugo. Hopefully we see you next season here on a Monday night.
Yeah, thanks, and also thanks to Powerslide Motorsports.
So that was Hugo Olsen, winner to close things off. And then a surprise second place is your series champion, Adam Blocker. Adam, that was a big issue on pit road. What happened there?
Yeah, well, I had a few big issues. First, I had a half spin in turn 3 that I really thought I was just going to wreck. So I don't know how I saved that. And then, yeah, pit in, I just downshifted to third. Like I slowed to hold the inside, and I thought I could add throttle and then brake later. And then when I added throttle, it just snapped loose, and I had to make a split-second decision whether I went around or tried to make the pit. And I thought if I went around, then I'm definitely out of the race. So I just tried to make the pit, and then I did make the speed. I just hit the cone and got an unsafe entry. So that was not fun.
And that late race caution really worked out for you, put you in a position to work your way to the front and to try and salvage a podium at the very least. Was there ever any chance that you would take the victory? We're just watching the replay. It looks like actually Alexander Van der Sande hit the wall, and that's what really enabled you then to break away from him.
Well, yeah, going into 1, I was on the inside, and I think I had him clear, and I was going to move over anyway, and then I think he like bumped into the wall, and that helped. But then the problem was I made a mistake in turn 1. I went really wide, and I think without that, I could have had a run at Hugo and maybe passed him. But I mean, to be honest, that would have been really unfair. Hugo definitely deserved the win.
We did see a lot of Powerslide Motorsports cars having spins or half spins that they then had to save. What was it about the setup that made it difficult to drive? Hugo mentioned that slightly colder track conditions than you maybe expected, and you were trying to adjust for that at the very last minute.
Yeah, I mean, well, I think some of the other guys like Chin was also sliding the rear from what I saw, but yeah, I think it was just the nature of how you had to set up the car here. The car was naturally very tight, especially in traffic, but the weird thing was your right rear temp limited in clean air, so it was really just a really fine balancing act. Also trying to not bottom in 1 because of the bumps. So yeah, it was just a really tremendous challenge to set up for and drive.
Well, congratulations on a great season, Adam, and Lionheart kicks off in just a couple of days' time. You've got plenty of things to celebrate, including the great run of Chevy at St. Petersburg in the season opener. We'll see you this Wednesday. Best of luck at Homestead Miami.
Yeah, just want to thank all the guys at Powerslide for all the effort this season. You know, it's no coincidence that we won 11 of the 12 SOFs. And I think that's, we can be really proud of that, and hopefully we can keep this momentum into May. And yeah, thank you guys for calling the races, and can't wait for another exciting season at Indy Open next season.
It's going to be great. Some trips to some classic tracks as well as some oddball tracks. That was Adam Blocker. Final step of the podium was a photo finish for Adam Crane to steal third away from Alexander Van der Sant. Nice little race there, Adam. You did look as though you had a pretty consistent, solid car. Not too many issues compared to some of those around you.
Yeah, it definitely felt like I was running with a tad bit more downforce than some of the other cars. When we were in a train, I had a little bit of difficulty just sort of keeping up, so I was hoping that the long run pace would be a little bit better, which it ended up being the case. I was even able to manage traffic a little bit better than I think a lot of the other cars at the top. That's where pretty much I gained a lot of time on everybody else, which makes it all the more unfortunate that last yellow came out, because I think that was probably my best shot at better than what ended up being P3, but I was debating whether or not to take tires on that last stop, and thought, you know what, I got to try, and there just wasn't enough heat in the tire or pressure in the tire in order for me to really make a good run at the top group. So luckily was in and around the top for a couple of mistakes from some of the other drivers up there to snag P3, so pretty happy with that.
Nets you 7th in the championship as well. Old Pocono versus new Pocono. I haven't asked this question yet. What's your opinion?
New Pocono.
So you're with us in
new Pocono.
Yeah. So we're going to bully Adam Blocker into removing Old Pocono from the rotation.
I will join you in that peer pressure.
There we go. I love the sound of that. Next season, got plenty of exciting races to come. You know my opinion. Going to the Nordschleife are always exciting, but we're going to see plenty of you. And what are you looking forward to?
Yeah, hopefully I'm able to make every round, or at least that's my expectation. Still trying to figure out how to maximize our efforts on the road course setups, really devoting a lot of time to those. But other than the IndyCar stuff, still got IVRA and SEO to look forward to, where you'll probably be seeing lots of me.
Oh, we got SEO this weekend as well, so you got something to look forward to. Hopefully it lasts at least one lap longer than it did last time.
Maybe just another 2 or 3 corners would be fine.
Yeah. Well, see you this Saturday from Silverstone, and best of luck for the upcoming season as well.
Awesome. Thanks so much, guys.
Adam Crane rounds up the podium, and since it's the end of the season, let's dial up Joshua Chin and have a quick chat to the King of Chins. Josh, what was that race like for you? Put it on pole, and then you know where I'm going with this. Team Talent having more issues on pit lane.
Yeah, I'm going to have to apologize to, I think, every single pit crew member that I just put in the ER after that, and thanks to the replacement crew for short notice. Yeah, the car was really good, especially in qualifying. Race trim, we were kind of more on equal pace with everyone, and then once I got back after the pit stop, debacle, I think is putting it lightly. Trying to get back through the traffic was difficult. It's this Pocono is a little less multi-group, so it's kind of difficult to work through, especially when you get back in that like 1.2 to 1.5 range. So overall, I was just trying to claw back from it. Thought we had a shot with that yellow having tires, and I couldn't get the tires warmed up at all. I never fired off the whole time. Unintentionally mirror drove Rob and then got passed by Crane anyways. So it could have been a third place with the pit stop. I think without a pit stop, it was a surefire second, if not a win. So some regrets. It's a usual Pocono end of season race for me, I guess. So I'll have to work on that. But yeah, overall it was fun. Definitely looking forward to trying to make more races next season. I think this was a good run into that.
And of course, next season will be a little bit easier with the races being 1 hour later. But Lionheart starts this week, and I know that you've got a bit of a scheduling conflict with your real world job. How much are you going to be able to run this year?
Unfortunately, I won't be able to make this week, but I think going forward, probably the next 3-4 races minimum I'll be able to do for sure, and then I think going forward it won't be an issue. But we'll see. It's all things tentative, and we'll see how it plays out.
Final question is about Lionheart. I think this is, you've been there now for a couple of years, but this is the most competitive that the series has been. Of course, the likes of you, Connor Harrington, Adam Blocker, you know, the series veterans, if you will, and then the guys that jumped in halfway through last year and only got a couple of races to show their medal. But your teammate Phil Kraus, you've got Rob Malechka, Alexander Van der Sande, even Alexis Newsom. What are you expecting from this season other than absolute fireworks?
It's definitely going to be a fight for the title. A lot of the power sled guys are very consistent, you know, top 5 every race, stuff like that. But Phil's got that potential, and Connor's got that potential to just kind of get those runs going and get wins and get a lot of points in the short span. So we'll see. It's all just, the biggest thing is consistency in a season that long. And, you know, we have, I think, 2 builds minimum in the middle of the season. So a lot of things can change in that time, and who's fast at the start of the season could be slow at the end of the season. Hard to know.
Well, hopefully, Josh, this is the first of many times that we'll see you next season. Hopefully, SEO goes well for you guys as well. We're just talking about that with Adam Crane. You're going to Silverstone for a 6-hour race this Saturday. Best of luck, and hopefully we see plenty more of you here on RaceSpotTV.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for the broadcast, as usual.
That was your final interview of the day, your pole position winner, Joshua Chin. Well, we're about wrapped up for the season. We'll have 1 week off before we return for another season of fantastic racing. 4 seasons in every calendar year for these official iRacing races. And let's take a look at what lies ahead of us, Andrew. We're flip-flopping. Last season, I should say, we started with a road course. This time, it's with a trip to the Texas Motor Speedway, but we've got some trips that are a little bit odd if you look at the real-world schedule and you think, why are we going there? We're going to Road Atlanta. We're going to the Nürburgring Nordschleife. But then you've got the series staples to match alongside the NTT IndyCar Series, the likes of Long Beach, Barber Motorsports Park, and of course, it all leads to the month of May.
Yeah, this is going to be a cracker of a schedule, I think, Arjuna. What I think I'm most excited for, though, is the street circuits, because especially with this car and the way that the tires sort of fall off on the road courses now, it's going to be some knockdown, drag-out fights, because we've seen already just on the road courses just how close these drivers have been. I can't wait to see what it'll be like with these drivers trying to chuck it down the inside into turn 1 at Long Beach or down into turn 4 at Belle Isle. And then, of course, the staples like Indianapolis, like Auto Club that we were talking about earlier, and then Barber, what a classic track that is. Milwaukee, another fine IndyCar track. This is going to be a fantastic schedule, and of course, your personal favorite makes its return in the Nordschleife.
It's always one of the most populated weeks, other than, of course, the trip to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway and the 4 left-hand turns there. First up will be Texas. What are you expecting? Because we are racing in afternoon conditions.
Yeah, with the afternoon conditions, that's going to mean that, much like today, you're going to see a fair bit of tire degradation, and keeping the balance of the car is going to be very, very important for all of these drivers. And the team that has the best setup is definitely going to come out on top. But one of the things that we have seen in the virtual world at Texas is those upper lanes in turns 1 and 2. They don't have quite the same problem as you do with the PJ1 in real life. So I expect to see some multi-groove racing, especially through turns 1 and 2, and it should be a very interesting start to this season.
Now, do remember that the last couple of times we've been to Texas, spins out of turn 2 have been prevalent. So there's a little bit of danger. We'll see how the drivers will mix things up. But that is going to bring an end to this 12-week season. Adam Blocker wins another double-digit championships already to his name. Do remember to tune in this Wednesday as Adam Blocker looks to make it 5 in a row in the Lionheart IndyCar Series. The road to the championship starts at the Homestead Miami Speedway. For now, though, it is time to bid you goodbye. And we'll be back in 2 weeks' time. Do note, it is 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacifics, because the clocks change that very weekend right before the race. What a roller coaster. Powerslide Motorsports, 11 victories in 12 races, and think back to what we saw to kick things off at Road America. An all-out brawl between Brandon Treno and Adam Blocker, with an uncharacteristic mistake from Blocker requiring an extra splash and dash on towards pit road. We'll see you, though, from the Lone Star State in 2 weeks' time for another 12-week championship campaign. For now, though, on behalf of the entire team at RaceSpotTV, for my co-commentator Andrew Kinsella, my name is Arjuna Kankipati saying so long for now. We'll see you from the Texas Motor Speedway.